Imagine standing at 20,000 feet above sea level, surrounded by the jagged, merciless peaks of the Himalayas, where the air is so thin every breath feels like drawing shattered glass into your lungs. The landscape is an endless ocean of blinding white snow and black rock, devoid of human civilization. Suddenly, your eyes lock onto a sight that makes your blood run colder than the freezing wind. Carved deeply into the untouched glacial powder, stretching off into the misty distance, is a perfectly straight line of massive, bipedal footprints. They are far too large to be human, entirely the wrong shape for a snow leopard, and spaced much too far apart for a bear. This terrifying scenario has been repeated by some of the most hardened mountaineers in history, giving birth to the most enduring cryptozoological mystery of the 20th century. This is the legend of the Yeti, a creature that transcends simple campfire stories to become a profound collision between ancient Himalayan mythology, Cold War paranoia, and modern Western scientific obsession. Long before European climbers ever set foot on the roof of the world, the indigenous peoples of the Tibetan Plateau and the Sherpa communities of Nepal possessed a rich, complex oral tradition regarding the wild men of the mountains. Rooted deeply in the ancient, pre-Buddhist Bon religion of Tibet, these entities were woven into the very spiritual fabric of the landscape. In their local dialects, there was no single monster, but rather a diverse spectrum of cryptids. There was the Mete, a man-sized creature covered in thick reddish hair, the Dzute, a much larger, highly aggressive beast that walked on all fours and preyed on livestock, and the Mite, a vicious ape-like entity. To the Sherpa people, these beings were not simply biological animals to be hunted or studied. They were supernatural omens, guardians of the high passes, and physical manifestations of the unforgiving mountain environment itself. Seeing a Yeti was considered an incredibly bad omen, often prophesying disaster, terrible storms, or sudden death for the unfortunate witness, serving as a constant reminder of humanity's fragile existence. The narrative shifted dramatically in the early 20th century when the British Empire began its aggressive geographical push to map and conquer Mount Everest. The catalyst for the global Yeti phenomenon occurred in 1921, during the first British Everest reconnaissance expedition. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Howard Barry, leading his team at an altitude of over 20,000 feet, discovered enormous, dark footprints pacing across a high-altitude glacier. When he questioned his local Tibetan porters, they casually attributed the tracks to the Mitokangmi, a term roughly translating to man-bear snow creature. When the expedition dispatched a telegraph back to colonial India detailing this strange encounter, a journalist named Henry Newman intercepted the story in Calcutta. In a stroke of brilliant, completely sensationalistic journalistic flair, Newman deliberately mistranslated the Tibetan phrase. He transformed the somewhat mundane indigenous description into the Abominable Snowman, a moniker so wonderfully evocative and culturally infectious that it instantly captured the imagination of the entire Western world. The 1950s witnessed the peak of this high-altitude monster hunt, transitioning the Abominable Snowman from a curious newspaper headline into a subject of massive international expeditions. The turning point was 1951, when the legendary British mountaineer Eric Shipton was exploring the treacherous Menlong Glacier. Shipton photographed a clear, sharply defined footprint measuring 13 inches long and 8 inches wide, crucially placing his ice axe directly next to the print for undeniable scale. This haunting image was wired around the globe, providing the first piece of hard visual evidence that something massive was indeed walking upright across the glaciers. The photograph triggered a gold rush of cryptozoological exploration. In 1954, the British Daily Mail newspaper funded a massive scientific expedition specifically to capture the beast, deploying zoologists and expert trackers into the deepest ravines of Nepal. Wealthy American adventurers, most notably the Texas oil tycoon Tom Slick, poured vast personal fortunes into organizing multi-year tracking operations, utilizing packs of tracking dogs and advanced infrared photography. The fever pitch of Yeti hunting reached such extraordinary heights that even international governments became formally involved. In 1959, the United States State Department actually issued official regulations regarding Yeti expeditions in Nepal, stipulating that any captured creature must remain within the country and could not be killed except in absolute self-defense. During this era of extreme enthusiasm, Western explorers also began uncovering alleged physical remnants of the creature held sacred within remote Himalayan monasteries. The most famous artifact was the Pangbo Shand, a mummified, skeletal appendage stored in a Nepalese Buddhist monastery, which the local monks adamantly claimed belonged to a fallen Yeti. The artifact quickly became the center of a bizarre international smuggling operation. An American explorer managed to secretly swap a portion of the skeletal hand with random human bones to steal the original fragments. To bypass strict customs agents, he allegedly enlisted the help of the famous Hollywood actor Jimmy Stewart. Stewart and his wife supposedly hid the stolen bone inside their luggage, buried deep within their undergarments, successfully smuggling it back to London. As the 20th century progressed and high-altitude mountaineering became heavily commercialized, the vast unexplored blank spaces on the map slowly vanished, yet the Yeti remained a phantom. The narrative slowly began to shift back toward biological reality, spearheaded by one of the greatest mountaineers in human history, Reinhold Messner. In 1986, Messner claimed to have a terrifying close-quarters encounter with a massive, bipedal creature in the remote forests of eastern Tibet. Instead of jumping to supernatural or cryptozoological conclusions, Messner spent the next 12 years meticulously researching local wildlife and ancient Tibetan folklore. He ultimately concluded that the legend of the Yeti was actually based on the Himalayan brown bear and the extremely rare Tibetan blue bear. These massive predators often stand and walk on their hind legs for short distances to survey their territory. Furthermore, Messner noted that indigenous vocabularies often use the exact same words to describe both mythical spirits and highly aggressive local bears. Modern genetic studies have overwhelmingly supported Messner's zoological theory. The final nail in the coffin of the primate theory came from rigorous DNA sequencing in the 21st century. Scientists have meticulously sequenced the DNA of numerous alleged Yeti samples, including hair, bone, skin, and feces collected over decades by various expeditions and stored in private museums. The results consistently and undeniably identify the samples as belonging to native Asian black bears, Himalayan brown bears, or local domestic dogs. Scientists also explain the footprint mystery. Due to the unique way intense high-altitude sunlight melts and refreezes snow, the overlapping tracks of a bear's front and hind paws can easily melt and merge together. This natural glacial expansion completely distorts the animal's path, creating a single, massive, astonishingly human-like footprint. Even the infamous stolen fragments of the Pangbo Shand were eventually subjected to genetic testing, revealing them to be a composite of human and ancient animal remains. Yet, despite the cold clinical finality of genetic sequencing and the relentless mapping of the modern world, the legend of the Abominable Snowman completely refuses to die. The creature represents something profoundly essential to the human psyche. It embodies humanity's primal desire for the world to retain its deep mysteries, a psychological hope that there are still wild, untamed frontiers lurking just beyond our carefully mapped reality. The Yeti serves as a powerful bridge connecting the ancient spiritual reverence of the indigenous Sherpa people with the modern adventurous spirit of Western explorers, forever challenging our arrogant assumption that we have completely understood and conquered the natural world. Thank you for ascending into the freezing heights of the Himalayas with us today on the History Channel. If discovering the fascinating origins, the bizarre smuggling plots, and the scientific reality behind the Abominable Snowman captivated your imagination, please click the like button to support our historical content. Make sure to subscribe to our channel right now and click that notification bell so you never miss our deep, dramatic journeys into the greatest mysteries and forgotten legends of world history. Until our next historical adventure, keep exploring the past and stay vigilant.